Heretics Fork. Wow, I did not think this game would be this addictive. Developed by Nine Finger Games and published by Revenue Games. Heretics Fork is a fuse between tower defense and a deck builder, where you're the manager of hell and are trying to stop heretics from escaping. I just think the presentation of the game is so cool, I love it. When you start up the game, you're starting up a desktop and the computer system Heretics Fork. As you progress in the game, more and more things will be added to the desktop. Get a lot of emails, a chat will appear, you have a sketchboard that will show you weird messages, a pet will appear, and many more things. There is also a story told here. It's not the most interesting one, but I like that it's there at least. Clicking the start icon on the desktop takes you to the actual game. Here you start by selecting an employee. They all have different abilities, which will alter how you play, but we talk a bit more about that later. Before starting, you're also choosing 2 towers to start defending with, and after you're done with the setup, it's time to defend the 9 circles of hell. At first the screen can be a bit overwhelming, but when you break everything down, it's quite easy to understand. In the middle of the screen, you have the playing field, with your towers in the middle of the field. The enemies will approach from all sides and want to get to the middle. You can't interact with the map at all. The towers will act on their own. On the right side you can see a few small symbols. They represent the levels for the current circle of hell you're helping defend. The big gray meter is the current wave, and when it's filled up you completed the wave. In the top left you have your towers. You can have a maximum of 6 towers active. Next to the towers you have a few controls for the speed and the zoom. You also have your HP here, which is represented by the red bar, the vertical bar as well. Beneath the towers on the left side you also have the card upgrade aspect of the game. I will explain this a bit later. The main part of the game takes place in the bottom middle. Between each completed wave, the game pauses and a few cards are drawn from your deck. To the left of the drawn cards, you have your currency to spend on using the cards you have drawn. The rock cards, which are usually the lowest grade cards, are free to play. The real cards have cost, and usually you can play every card you have drawn each turn. The cards you can't or won't play will be discarded. When you've played all of the cards in your deck, the discard pile will be shuffled and you'll draw a new deck. The cards have your usual rarity tiers: common, uncommon, rare, epic, and unique. And here is where the upgrade part of the game comes in. If you have 2 cards of the same rarity in your hand, you can upgrade them. When you do, the 2 cards will be removed from your deck and you get to choose 1 out of 3 random cards. These 3 cards will be 1 higher rarity tier. The card you choose will get placed in the top slot of the upgrade section. The nice thing here is that you can leave the card here if you don't have the currency to play it right now or don't want to play it right now. Maybe you don't have the space for the tower right now. The upgrade system is great for when you have too many cards and can't play them all, or you have cards you don't want in your deck. You can just fuse a few of them together and get a better grade card. And as a bonus, it also gets saved throughout the rounds. There are a lot of cards in the game, and you will unlock more and more from completing missions and spending in-game gold. You can also use the gold to purchase new employees as well. All the cards are broken down into a few categories. You have your actual towers. These are split into static towers and minion towers. The tower cards also come in 3 different damage types: holy, unholy, and hellfire. You then have your buff cards that will affect everything from movement speed, fire rate, damage, spawn rate, range, different damage types, and many more. The variety of cards is great. All towers are very distinct from one another as well. You also have cards that you can use immediately, like damage enemies on the map or kill a few of them. And lastly, you have active cards. When you use an active card, you get an ability, as you can see in the top middle. These abilities vary between restoring HP, granting a shield, damage fields on the map, and more. When you use an ability, it goes on a timer until you can use it again. You can also automate the use of the abilities. This worked a lot better than I thought, and is what I always use now. You start off the game, or shift as the game calls it, with a few cards in your deck, and from here on out you're trying to build the best deck you can from the cards you get. Throughout the shift, cards will be granted in a few ways. When you upgrade cards, the new upgraded card will be added to the deck. On the 3rd wave of each circle of hell, you also get to add cards to your deck. Between each circle of hell, you also acquire 2 cards. These you can also skip if you don't want them. In the upgrade window, you can also sacrifice cards, which will be removed from your deck. Perfect for cards you don't want in your deck. At the end of a circle of hell, you also get to choose between adding a new tower slot or a major buff. If you get below 12 cards in your deck, new rock cards will be shuffled in the next card phase. Personally, I don't have a problem with how the deck building side of the game works. It's a bit random and almost impossible to replicate previous builds, but I think the random aspects of the card building is super fun, especially several hours in when you have unlocked a lot more cards. When we're talking about playstyles, the employees offer the biggest change in how you will play the game. The first time you play the game, you will start with Ruby the intern. She has unfortunately no special abilities and will start the game with a random basic deck. When you get enough money, you can buy one of the 5 other employees. They all have different abilities that define them. John can lock sacrifice slots, preventing cards you put here to be discarded between rounds. Danny has the ability to redraw your entire hand once per turn. Naya can sacrifice HP and in return she draws a card and recovers 2 card currencies. Employee Unknown gets his damage amplified depending upon the amount of rock cards that are in play. Lastly, Greasy. She has access to a shop rift where she can purchase cards, and sacrificing cards generate gold. All of these employees bring a different flair to the game and, as I mentioned, change how you approach each shift. The balancing act of the game is pretty cool. Deciding which card you can sacrifice for a new upgraded card, which you want to keep because they're really good and you want to replay them to get the buffs. It's a nice back and forth. A full run of all 9 circles takes about an hour, and at the end I spend a lot of time using the same cards to buff my towers. Balancing isn't perfect in the game. There are a few ways to play the game that are way better than others, like focusing on one type of damage or one type of tower. In my experience, that is always advantageous. This is more of a problem in the beginning of the game. When you progress and unlock more cards, more options become available. Yes, there are cards that reward you from using different towers and different damage types, but I don't find that there are as many. Often I also manage to create a deck of a lot of good cards, which makes the game a bit stale because I only use the same cards over and over again. But overall, this is a minor issue. This is a smaller game and the experience the game provides is totally worth the money. For me, this is just a perfect chill game. You don't have to pay 100% attention all the time. The music as well, it's great. I usually don't listen to this kind of music, but it's very fitting for the game. It's an easy recommend if you like tower defense with a flair of deck building.